You're listening to an Anderson Entertainment production.
This episode...
Bring out the animals in Fab Facts.
Well, sir, looks like there's gonna be a gunfight again in the randomizer.
And Martin Roberts, Mastermind, part 2 of his interview.
Is that a joke?
Hey.
That's all coming up in Pod 158.
Of the Gerry Anderson Podcast.
Hilarious.
1. Let's get started. Let's go.
Spectrum is green.
The Gerry Anderson Podcast with Jamie Anderson and Richard James.
Yeah.
I mean, probably the most hilarious introduction
Mastermind.
of this episode.
Because he was on Mastermind.
Yeah, no, I got that.
Oh.
It was very, very clever.
Yeah, thanks.
Anyway, look, this is the Gerry Anderson Podcast, but I thought, as a novelty,
Oh, yes.
to explain what happens, we should start at the end and return to the beginning. So if I
Right.
start, we'll go in alternating fashion. I'll say, well, in about 70 to 90 minutes or so, we'll be ending this episode of the Gerry Anderson Podcast.
Crikey.
But before that, and then over to you.
Okay, that's really difficult. All right, I'll try.
So before that,
Oh, what now?
yes, we're doing it right now.
Okay, so it's Chris Dale's Randomiser, where he sits down in front of a random Gerry Anderson episode and gives us his thoughts and comments. But preceding that...
Will be, or will have been, the second part of our interview with TV's Martin Roberts of Homes Under the Hammer fame. But leading into that will have been...
well, by now it'll be old news because you would have heard it, but it'll be new news when you hear it, the Gerry Anderson News.
Yes, which will
Right.
probably have been almost as exciting as the Fab Fact, which precedes it.
Yes, and interspersed amongst all of that will be emails, Facebook group posts, and Twitterings from our wonderful Podsterons. All that coming up, or has been, or
Will have been.
will be about to be.
And will have been delivered by your hosts,
Jamie Anderson and
Richard James,
the
and him over there.
Chris Dale. There, I think we did it, didn't we?
I mean, it was incredibly
Touch and go.
polished. I mean, I wish I'd prepared you for that before.
Yeah. Well, thank you. Little heads up would have been nice.
You've got to find novelty in these things after 158 episodes.
Yes, that's right.
Oh, goodness me. Right, I'm knackered. I actually have got a yawn
that it?
coming now.
Oh, no. You can't do
sorry.
that. We've only just started.
No, I
Trouble
know.
is, it's contagious. Everyone out there now
Sorry,
listening to
Podsteron.
this will be trying to stifle a yawn wherever they are.
Okay, well, that's an amusing thought that now across the world are people stifling yawns because I did a yawn. Look, anyway.
Yeah, so if you're sitting next to anyone on the bus and they suddenly yawn, you know what they're going to be listening to on their headphones.
Yeah, how funny. I mean, that's
Just
always
tap them
been
on
the
the knee.
case.
Yeah, so excuse me, are you listening to the Gerry Anderson Podcast?
Yeah, but that would count for any episode prior to this.
That's true.
Right,
Yeah.
now look, we need to perk people up. So the best way to do that
yes.
will be with a Fab Fact.
Oh.
Now, time for this week's Fab Facts.
Yes, it's the Fab Fact where, well, I've got a book of Fab Facts. Listen to it here.
Yeah.
I bashed into the mic there, sorry.
You did, yes.
But I'm going to flick through it at a slower speed than that, and at a random point, Richard James is going to shout, Bab! And at that moment, I will do my best to bring the flicking to a halt, landing me upon a page which hopefully will contain a Fab Fact. And I'm going to read you that Fab Fact. Hopefully you'll find it fab, and then we can all, rest happily in the knowledge that we're one Fab Fact better off in our lives.
Yeah, okay, well, I look forward to it.
Okay, here we go.
Fab!
See, I've got last week's sticky thumb again.
What you doing? Why don't you give it a wash between pods?
Well, I thought I'd clean my thumb very well, but clearly not.
Clearly you hadn't.
Anyway, Richard James,
Yes.
often in my interviews with podcast guests, I ask them what it is that makes...
What it is that makes an Anderson show.
Anderson
Yeah.
show.
And then they say, you're my
Anderson show.
best mate, you are. Yeah.
Anyway, look, I tend to ask them what makes an Anderson show an Anderson show.
Right.
In other words, what gives it its Anderson style? It's Anderson
it's a good question.
je ne sais quoi. It's Anderson
Very good.
DNA, if you will.
Yeah. Okay.
I mean, it's more than just
Get the picture.
puppetry, since live-action shows like UFO and Space 1999 have it too, and Space Precinct.
Has it in spades, I'd say.
Exactly, Spade's Precinct. Some interviewees have said that it's the futuristic vehicles, teamwork, world government, a positive outlook, etc., but one frequently forgotten trope in the Anderverse is the animal sidekick.
Oh, right. Okay, here we go.
You see where we're going with this one?
Yes.
Animals have always been an important part of Gerry Anderson shows, beginning with Twizzle.
Yeah.
Do you remember the name of the animal sidekick in Twizzle, Richard?
Oh, there was a cat called Footso, wasn't there?
That's it, played by Denise Breyer.
Denise Breyer.
A cat very fat who sleeps on a mat, in fact. That was his song, wasn't it? That was Footso. Anyway,
I don't know.
I'm a cat very fat and I sleep on a mat and whatever. Anyway, Twizzle and Torchy were Roberta Lee creations, but Dad's team brought the animal sidekick idea along to Four Feather Falls.
Right.
Dusty the dog and Rocky the horse were empowered with voices by Tex Tucker's Magical Feathers.
Good.
As what was then known as AP Films took a turn towards the fantastic with Supercar, one might think that the element of an animal tagging along on adventures would be left behind, but you'd be wrong to think that.
Yes.
Supercar featured one of the most famous and most beloved, maybe, Super Marination pets, Mitch the Monkey.
Mitch the Monkey?
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Whether he was accidentally defeating the villains, tossing survival rations from the life raft in the open sea, or ruining one of Dr. Beaker's experiments, Mitch could always be counted upon to provide some hilarious hijinks.
I bet he could.
There was an air quote in there, I think. But did you know that Mitch was actually the fulfillment of Dad's childhood dream?
Really?
In an interview with the late Simon Archer, Dad revealed that he had always wanted a pet monkey growing up.
Oh.
Thus, Jimmy Gibson, Black Rock Laboratories Wonder Boy, was given Mitch as a pet with no real origin story explained.
Oh, I was going to say, when of course he had you as a son, his dream was fulfilled. But no, carry on. Yeah.
We can skip over that, shall we? So while Dad never actually fulfilled his dream of owning a monkey, he was briefly responsible for the care of a monkey named Billy, who belonged to Sylvia's father.
Right.
The monkey escaped and went on a Mitch-like adventure, stopping traffic on Windsor Road, stealing an apple, and terrifying the neighbours.
Love it.
Fortunately, international rescue was summoned and the animal was brought back unharmed to its thoroughly disillusioned caregiver.
Yes.
Of course,
interesting.
there are many more animals in the Anderverse. Zuni, the Lazoon from Powerball XL5. Oink, the seal from Stingray. Oink, oink.
Yes, very good.
Harry Rule's dog.
Yeah.
Zill in Space Precinct.
Yeah.
And quite a few shows don't feature very much animal activity at all, of course. But which was your favourite? If you had to create an animal for an Anderson show that doesn't have one, what sort of animal would it be? A St. Bernard for international rescue, perhaps? Seems fitting.
Yeah. Be useful.
A hamster in the power generating room at Moonbase Alpha. Do email us with your Anderson animal suggestions.
Better ideas. Yeah.
How rude. To podcast@gerryanderson.co.uk, and we would love to hear them. So, Richard James, what would you choose?
Well, that's very interesting, hearing
Is
about
it?
your dad's affinity for monkeys, because, of course, in 5 Star 5, which I've recently adapted,
Yes.
soon there's a talking chimpanzee, for goodness sake.
Absolutely, and I bet you that's
Clarence
rare.
B. Bond, the co-pilot of the freighter.
Interestingly, this all ties into some research we've been doing recently for the planned biography documentary for next year.
Yeah.
And I noticed that in the life raft at the start of Supercar, it's Jimmy's older brother, and the monkey. And obviously, I very much see that is Dad as Jimmy with his older brother, Pilot, and the monkey that he never had. So he's sort of bringing his brother back to life in some way, and having the monkey in there too. So
how
it's
interesting.
amazing how sort of biographically driven some of these things are.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. That's extraordinary. Did you ever have a sort of a fantasy pet when you were growing up?
I mean,
sorry, I asked now, to be honest.
a monkey would have been cool, I guess. But, you know, I was happy with the dogs, and now I've got a million pets. So there we go.
You have. Yes, you just sent me a picture of one of them.
Yes, in a compromising position, but let's not go into that.
No, let's not. Please not.
Do you have any suggestions for animals that didn't make it into shows that could have been interesting?
I mean, I rather like it in, I think this is Star Trek Enterprise, isn't it? Where I think, Captain Archer has a dog called Porthos, and I think Koenig, he would have, he'd be the sort of a pet dog on board, wouldn't he?
Yeah, I think so. I mean...
And that maybe would have brought a bit of extra interest to Space 1999, I don't really know.
Yeah, I suspect so.
A bit of, companionship, maybe a bit of peril.
Yeah.
If the dog needed to have a wee or something, where would you take him for a walk?
How would the dog cope with the G-forces of being thrown out of Earth's orbit? I don't know.
Yeah, all that sort of thing, you see?
Yeah.
Right, I'm on the phone to Big Finish. That's
Okay.
the next series, I think.
Perfect.
Definitely.
Yeah, make that suggestion. Done. Good. Well, there we go. I look forward to your animal suggestions, Podsterons. And until next week, I think that brings us,
Can't wait.
a bit weirdly, to the end of this week's Animal Fact. Oh, Animal
Fact.
Yeah, they're near
pet
enough.
animal. Yeah.
Same thing.
Yeah,
Let's pull the whole thing off.
Why not? But before you do that, why not subscribe to us, the Gerry Anderson Podcast, on whichever platform you're listening to us on. Leave us a lovely review and a rating, please, wherever you're listening to us, because they really do help. And also, why not copy the link and share it on all your social medias at least once a month, I would say. One in every 4 podcasts. If it's a good one and you really enjoy it, copy that link, post it on your Facebook page, post it on your Twitters, on your Instagrams, make a TikTok about it, or whatever the young people do these days. And that might even convince other people to listen to. So why not do that? And in the meantime, you can get in touch with us, of course, at podcast@gerryanderson.co.uk, just like these lovely Podsterons. For example, Terry from Hereford says, I am just reading a Kindle on the history of GCHQ, and in several chapters, a man named Gerry Anderson is mentioned. Thought you might be interested. And that's from Terry.
I'm guessing we're probably not going to get an interview with somebody from GCHQ on the podcast, though.
I'm guessing you won't, or
Be tough,
maybe
that
we
one.
already have, and they just
We don't
hacked
even
in
know
and removed it.
Or maybe
Yeah.
one of the hosts is someone who works for GCHQ and we don't know because of the Official Secrets Act. Awkward.
Anyway, moving on, we've also heard from Matthew Alderman Harris, who
great.
says, hello, Jamie and Richard. Congratulations on reaching your 3rd anniversary. The anniversary of the Gerry Anderson Podcast, that is, not you two. He says.
Well, it's
no,
also...
we go way back, much further, don't
I was going to say, it'll soon be the 27th anniversary of our bromance.
Yes. Yeah, okay. Anyway, Matthew says, I've been a regular listener since Pod 1, and it's one of the highlights of my week. If it weren't for the podcast, I wouldn't have made friends with the lovely people on the listeners' Facebook group. Yes, quite right. He says, also, I thoroughly enjoyed Thunderbirds' Terror from the Stars. The voices are excellent, and the story is fantastic. I think it would have made a good movie. I also love the music, as it was faithful to Barry Gray's original score, but put a new spin on it. My favourite piece was the rendition of the Thunderbirds theme at the beginning. I'd love to hear a clean version of it with no voiceover, so I was wondering if you could consider including it on the podcast or releasing it on the YouTube channel. Perhaps you could do a full soundtrack release of all the music. Looking forward to the next Thunderbirds and Stingray audio dramas, FAB, PWOR, Matthew Alderman Harris. What do you think of that?
FAB indeed. Yes, Joe Kramer's done a lovely job of the Barry Gray stuff.
Yeah.
And we've talked about maybe doing a sort of combined soundtrack in due course. But we shall have to wait and see. There's definitely too many things going on right now to add something else on the list, but maybe in the future.
Good. Ian Jacklin says, Dear gentlemen, I hope you're all keeping well. I was listening to your podcast talking about Doppelganger the other day. Oh, yes, a few weeks back. He says, I can remember watching the double-flopped version around 1995 on Sky Movies. A few years ago, I did recreate this version of Doppelganger using editing software. Jamie, just as you suggested. And my DVD copy. I would like, or if you would like, he says, I can forward you a copy. Best wishes, Ian Jacklin. Lifelong Gerry Anderson fan. Yeah, lots of people saying, I noticed on YouTube and Facebook, that they'd seen the flopped version of Doppelganger recently, or within the sort of last 20 years or so, on Sky Movies and so on. So it's interesting, it did the rounds for quite a while, didn't it?
Yeah, it did. I mean, amazing. But I guess, just nobody was really watching it closely enough who had any power to make it better and fix it.
True enough. And Jamie, of course, well, you've opened a can of worms here, haven't you?
Oh, have I?
Well, your whole 6 degrees of Anderson thing.
Oh, is that still going?
Yeah, yes. So a couple of weeks ago, you gave us Hadrian's Wall to Fireball XL5.
I did, you're right.
You did. Simon Allen got in touch to say Hadrian's Wall was built by the Romans. A film featuring the Romans was Carry On Cleo. In that film was Wanda Ventham. She appeared in The Lotus Eaters with Ian Hendry and Paul Maxwell. Paul Maxwell was the voice of Steve Zodiac, pilot of Fireball XL5.
Nice.
Good,
That's good.
Says Martin Walton, or Watton, hello to Richard, Jamie and Randomiser General. An easy 6 links or less, I think. He says, before the path of the wall, Hadrian's Wall, leaves Newcastle, it passes by the location of Byker Grove, which is not in Byker, and enters the area of the west end of Newcastle called Denton. There's a Colonel Denton, of whom the crew of Fireball XL5 search for in the episode Mystery of the TA2. I used to live just outside of Wallsend, but at that time the Segedunum Roman fort wasn't a thing I was aware of, being much more concerned with Stingray, Thunderbirds, Captain Scarlet and the model of TB1 that my dad had made for me out of some strange plastic that could only be found in the 1970s. I wish I still had it. Anyway, looking forward to the arrival of both the book and audio of Terror of the Stars, Martin Watton. So there you go. So he got the path of the wall into Denton, and then Colonel Denton being looked for by Fireball XL5. So I think he did it in about 2 or 3 steps there.
Well, it should be 6, shouldn't it? I mean, that's the fun of it.
Yeah.
It's actually making 6 steps. So I'm afraid we'll have to reject your connections outright.
Dear. Now, Jamie, it's time for some very sad news.
Oh, no.
Phil Steer is no longer on any social media.
What?
Yep, he's left Facebook, he's left Twitter.
Why has he done
Thankfully,
that?
we have his email address, and he sent us an email with his 6 degrees of Anderson connecting Hadrian's Wall to Fireball XL5.
Excellent.
Ready?
Yes.
Now, number 1. Hadrian's Wall was begun by the Roman Emperor Hadrian in AD 122 and largely finished within 6 years. It's 80 Roman miles, or 73 miles long, and had around 15 forts along its length. Number 2. The soldiers stationed at each fort were governed by a commanding officer called the Prefect. Number 3. The Prefect was a line of cars built by Ford UK between 1938 and 1961. Number 4, Ford Prefect was also the name of a character within Douglas Adams' Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy who came from a small planet somewhere in the vicinity of Betelgeuse. Or Betelgeuse?
Yes.
However you pronounce it. Number 5, Betelgeuse or Betelgeuse is the second brightest star in the constellation of Orion, sharing the night sky with other constellations, including those that form the 12 signs of the Zodiac. Number 6, Steve Zodiac piloted Fireball XL5.
Got it. Nice.
How's that?
Well, that's pretty good. If only we could tweet about it for this Phil Steer theme section of the Phil Steer podcast.
Yeah, but there we are. But, we've got his address. We can, email him our thanks.
Sounds a bit like a threat, that, Richard.
Yeah, it does, doesn't it? Yeah. We have your email address.
Yeah.
So thanks, Phil Steer.
Cheers, Phil.
I've got one more coming up, but I'm going to save it for a little bit later on, and you'll see why.
All right.
Yeah. All right.
Okay. Well, I'm very much looking forward to that.
Yeah, so are you going to set us another 6 degrees of Anderson for our Podsterons to email in?
Yes.
Go on then.
Do you want it now?
Because I know you've given it a lot of thought.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Well,
Okay.
you seem to just pluck the other 2 out the air, so...
Yes. Well, this week, I need you to connect a 2-penny piece
Oh, crikey, right.
to the monster from the Space 1999 episode Dragon's Domain.
That's so unfair.
Why?
That's difficult.
No, it's not.
A 2p piece.
Because there's actually a very easy route to it, I reckon.
Oh.
But yeah, a 2p piece. In fact, there's a particular one here. It's the 2p piece.
What, you've got a 2p piece?
On my desk, dated 2001.
Oh. Not 1999.
No, dated 2001. And that actually, maybe that's too easy. Anyway, 2p piece to the creature from Dragon's Domain as creatively as possible, and it must be in exactly 6 steps. No more, no less. Thank you.
That's harsh. All right.
Good luck.
Good. Yeah. Great. Well done. More Facebook posts next week and a special one coming up a little later.
Great. Oh, I look forward to it. Okay, fine. Well, while we wait, let's pass the time with a little bit of Gerry Anderson news.
Oh, goody.
It's the Gerry Anderson
News.
Yes, it is.
Thought so.
I've got a fair bit for you this week.
Great.
Let's start with this then. It's the Gerry Anderson News, so let's start with Supercar in HD. Supercar. Sorry, I can't help myself. It's so exciting. A Supercar high-definition Blu-ray release is coming later this year. You can pre-order it now. It comes in a lovely chocolate box presentation. Oh, it's lovely, with a book by Andrew Pixley, a special comic, a badge, a pilot's license. I hasten to say not the same badge or pilot's license as you may have picked up in the 60th anniversary box set. Different. If you have picked that up recently, by the way, drop a line to support@gerryanderson.co.uk and Louise might have something special for you. Anyway, it's rather lovely, and I hope it might be a brand new sequence of upcoming Blu-ray releases. I've got no proof for that, but going back to Supercar, that seems interesting, so watch this space for more. You may also have seen our news this week about our publishing programme. We released some news to trade about various titles, and of course you clever things out there have tracked down some information and found out a few things that we've got in the pipeline. Those things include, as I may have mentioned before, Stingray Operation Ice Cap, hardback book and audio book, full cast audio book that are coming very soon.
Look forward to it. As
well as a complete UFO comic anthology and a very, very special and glorious and beautiful Space 1999 Moonbase Alpha technical notebook. It's more of a full technical guide, I'd say.
Ah, yes.
It's pretty expansive, more on that soon, but it is very, very exciting. If you've ever wondered what FAB stands for, well, of course it's First Action Bureau. No, it's not. No, it's not. Chris Dale has finally brought us a definitive answer, even featuring a clip and a quote from Dad giving you the final answer. I'm not telling you what it is right now. Lots of you already know, but pop along to our YouTube channel, youtube.com/GerryAndersonTV, and you can watch the What Does FAB Mean video right there. It's guaranteed to entertain because it's by Chris Dale, and he's an hilarious chap and does these wonderful videos. So thank you, Chris. His talents expand well beyond the Randomiser.
Oh, good.
Speaking of audiobooks, as I mentioned just now, 5 Star 5 is coming very soon. We will have another sample for you of that in due course. Might feature on the podcast next week, might be on the YouTube channel, might be on both.
Mm-hmm.
And finally, I have a little treat for you. Seeing as we mentioned Doppelganger a couple of weeks ago in the erroneously reversed mirror sequence, how about 20% off the brand new Doppelganger DVD or Blu-ray? Well, if you want it, you'll have to be able to spell podcast backwards, because in the spirit of being in a mirror on a mirror Earth on the other side of the sun, if you put in the DVD or Blu-ray into your basket on the Gerry Anderson store, and during checkout use the discount code SACDOP.
Mm-hmm.
That's podcast backwards, so TSACDOP. That's quite hard to spell, actually. TSACDOP. That's podcast backwards, all in capital letters. Then you'll get 20% off your Doppelganger or Journey to the Far Side of the Sun DVDs and Blu-rays. There you go. It runs all this week until the 27th of June and is limited to 50 uses. So only for the first 50 customers who pop along and grab that. Enjoy. And that is the end of this week's Gerry Anderson News.
That was the news. Fabulous news.
Why didn't you sing?
Ah, well, now you know I was saving a little something. I did say.
You did threaten me with that, yes.
Yeah. Well, here's Martin Laybourne.
Oh.
Hello, chaps. It's Martin Laybourne here again. Now, here's my 6 degrees of Gerry Anderson for Hadrian's Wall to Fireball XL5. Here we go. Hadrian's Wall was one of the filming locations for the 1991 movie Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves. The character in the film, Little John, was played by English actor Nick Brimble, who incidentally made an appearance in Space 1999. Nick Brimble appeared in an episode of the BBC Two Play of the Week in 1978 about the artist Renoir, alongside actor John Bluthal. John Bluthal, as we know, was the voice of Commander Zero in Fireball XL5.
Oh, I see why you saved that.
You see, thank you to Martin, firstly for his little 6 degrees of Anderson, and also for saving my voice again by giving us a little, that was the news.
Yeah.
That was the news.
I mean, if you don't sing, Richard, then what is it that you actually do on this podcast exactly?
Well, I sweep the floor and switch the lights out when everyone's done.
Okay. Well,
Have you not noticed?
you keep
That's
up the
why it's
good
so
work
tidy every time you come back.
doing that. That does make sense. Yeah. Anyway, thank
Yeah,
you, Martin.
all right. Yes.
Well, you're welcome back anytime.
Yeah, quite right too. And more Gerry Anderson news next week, of course. And in the meantime, over on our Facebook group, facebook.com/groups/Podsterons, Podsterons have been posting. For example, Alex K says, is it just me, or is Season 2 of Thunderbirds the only Super Marination series in which not a single gunshot is fired? Yes, he says, guns are featured, most notably in Alias Mr. Hackenbacker and Give or Take a Million, but I can't recall them actually being used. Just an interesting observation that's been bugging me for a while. Well,
Season 2,
do you
I
know
suppose.
better?
But I mean, it is only a limited number of episodes. It's only 6, so I'm not sure you can really
even so,
count it as such. But
fair enough.
yeah,
Rob
okay.
Doyle says, finally got some time to watch the next pilot episode, and although I've already watched the whole series, I thought I'd watch Stingray episode 1 in HD. I'm so glad I did. It's such fun. The music is Barry Gray at his best. When they call battle stations, it gives me goosebumps every time. The characters are well developed and the model work is outstanding. This is a 10 out of 10 show for me, and I'm going to be controversial, but I think it's better than Thunderbirds. Network, get the Blu-ray release set released now, please.
Or else.
Yeah, fair enough. Stingray better than Thunderbirds. I mean, I don't think that's that controversial, to be honest. I think there's probably a lot of people in that queue.
It's got a certain different, more comic book feel to it, hasn't it? A bit more heightened.
Yeah, it does.
So
That's right.
I see the appeal.
And here's a good idea from Ian Allen, who says, today I'm going to do my own celebration to AP Films and Century 21 Studios. I've called it Slough Studios Tuesday. I'm sure in saying and thinking that the Anderson team and crew move into Slough in June. So I've picked myself the second Tuesday of June to celebrate all the magic the whole team did from that small studio and in that short time. I'll be watching the 2 documentaries I have and an episode from Thunderbirds and others throughout the day and have a small drink to them. Cheers. So here's to the fantastic dream team. Many thanks to you all for all that excitement you brought to us. Well, that's a nice thought, isn't it?
Isn't it just? Yeah. Not
Tuesdays,
many people
Slough Studios
celebrate
Tuesday.
anything with Slough in it, so that's great.
And finally, for now, Jamie, what would we do without Tom Hodden? I mean, we'd be completely devoid of content, wouldn't we, most weeks?
We just sit here in silence, really.
We would. This week he says, let's play a game of coming soon. Today, suggest cookery books that might soon appear in the Anderson store. Jonathan Westall suggested Pitter Breads of Peril. Heather Ballard says, Frapped in the Sky, the Fireflash Onboard Barista's Guide to Coffee Making.
Wow.
Simon Allen says Richard James' Spice Precinct, featuring Lamb Brogan Josh.
Oh.
And finally, Paul G says, Move and Your Bread, Half-Baked Ideas by Alan Tracy.
Oh. Wow.
That's very good.
That is
You see?
quite a
You see?
quality set of entries there, I would say.
Isn't it? That's why people join the Gerry Anderson Podcast Podsterons Facebook group. Get on over there, answer a few questions, we'll let you in and you can join in the fun.
I mean, after that advert, how could you not?
Yeah, that's right, exactly.
Well, something that I hope they'll all be talking about over there after this episode is our Martin
Yes.
Roberts interview.
Oh, yes, I'm sure they will be, yes.
Because he's here with part 2,
Good.
further discussing the love of all things Anderson, a bit about his career, how he got into telly and all that good stuff.
Nice.
Rounding off with how you can get in touch with Martin and a bit about his charity work too. So there's all
Great.
sorts of good stuff there, but plenty of Anderson goodness sprinkled throughout. So here's Martin Roberts part 2. So post the puppet era, you mentioned UFO in Space 1999. Did they cross much into your
Yes,
enjoyment?
to a degree. Again, I remember, but I have a hazy memory of this because they had real people, didn't they?
Yeah, it was like fully live action.
It was like
Fully
that.
live action.
So I never really put that in the same category as the others because it was just so different. So my little mind at the time didn't think they came from the Anderson stable.
Yeah.
And do you know what made your dad move towards that?
Because he hated the puppets, Martin. He called them little bastards. And he wanted to be doing live action stuff that whole time. And that's what drove him to make the stuff so filmic, which then helped generations fall in love with it because it looked so grand and epic, even though it was puppets. And so he couldn't wait to get rid of them.
Really?
Yeah.
And what
hated
about
them.
Mum?
So Sylvia is Dad's second wife.
Right.
I'm third marriage. So mine's Terrahawks almost. I think Sylvia as well. To be honest, she was really happy with what they'd achieved, but they both had these aspirations of wanting to go into live action because they did. Doppelganger.
I don't know that one.
Okay, so they made that in '68. That was the live action feature film, which they must have been doing alongside Scarlet Joe 90 and tail end of Scarlet and Joe 90 era, and that was what they really wanted to be doing. And they thought, oh, now we've done this live action film, we've made it, and now it's all going to be about live action. And so even in the Secret Service, trying to blend puppets and live action was this sort of stepping stone towards it. That's what all he wanted.
Wow. And in relative terms, how did UFO do in Space 1999?
Well, you put everything relative to Thunderbirds. Obviously, Thunderbirds is the pinnacle.
What, in terms of viewership at the time?
Yeah, I think so, in terms of success. I mean, the ITC and Lou Grade's aim was always to try and sell to the US for syndication. And they didn't get that. Fireball XL5 they had that with, but afterwards, none of the puppet shows really hit the mark.
Yeah.
UFO didn't get there because it was quite adult tonally, and I guess they had been typecast to some degree by making all the puppet shows. There was a thing, it's another kids thing, right? We'll pigeonhole it for that, and then they start looking at the episodes and go, there's people getting killed and they're taking drugs and stuff. This is not what we're expecting at all. So it kind of gained a cult following, but not enough to get a second series. And then Space definitely had more of an effect, certainly in the US. I would say Space is probably the biggest US property. But, Thunderbird still sits right up there in terms of audience at the time and now. And then your kind of second tier is Space 1999, maybe Captain Scarlet, then UFO, and then we're down into sort of Stingray and beyond. So it's really interesting, the things that stuck and the things that just didn't. And same for you, because Thunderbirds is your pinnacle piece as well.
Yeah, totally.
For whatever reason or reasons.
Yeah, well, and I the reasons I can say from watching it again in a few months ago is brilliant. It is everything about it. Oh, and I'll tell you, it was because we met at one of your conventions. I think it was about 2015, wasn't it? And I met the guy who did my puppet's voice.
Would that been Jeremy Wilkin, maybe?
No. Name another one. Sorry?
Shane Rimmer, David Graham. It was Shane.
Shane Rimmer.
Yeah, who was also Scott.
He was also Scott, of course. But he did, they did lots of different characters, obviously. Yeah. And he did, and I've got a little thing from him saying, hi Martin from, just referencing this puppet that
amazing
he did the voice for. Little did they know that they would be, it was quite, that wasn't that long ago that I met him, right? And so there he was, and he was obviously, relatively, advanced, not advanced in years, but he probably was in his 20s or 30s when he did the voices for the birds, and it was there, so I guess he must have been in his 60s or 70s when he came along to that convention.
Probably early 80s even, possibly.
Yeah, is he still alive?
No, he passed away about two years ago.
Right.
Something like that. So because in fact I went over to his place and had lunch and did an interview for the podcast. God, about 100 editions ago, I think, something like that. Wow. And had a lovely chat. So no, they were all incredibly proud of their ongoing association. And David Graham, who did Parker and Brains and Gordon, is still going now. He's 96.
Oh wow, because he did the voice for the new series, didn't he? He was the only one.
Yeah, he did. It's still doing Parker. I think he's looking for a bit of a break now in his 96th year, which is totally fair enough. Bless him. But yeah, they never realised that it would be going 50 years later, and they'd still be known as the voice of these puppet characters.
No, but that's amazing, isn't it? And I guess when you hear those voices, it just transports you back, right?
Yeah.
And, you close your eyes and you hear Shane, remember because he spoke in his normal voice. I don't think he put on any accents, did he?
No, it was pretty much just neutral Shane, which he had that kind of slightly gravelly, heroic intensity to his voice.
Yes, he did. And I know that David didn't talk like Parker all the time, obviously, but the second he switches into that,
Yeah.
It was. I'll tell you just a side story. And then, again, this will mean nothing to you, but it might mean something to your listeners. But there was a show in my childhood called Bagpuss.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and the
Bagpuss.
Clangers was another thing, and they were all done by this guy called Oliver Postgate.
Yeah,
and Bagpuss was a much younger children's show. It was about this little cat, furry cat puss, who he lived in a sort of like an antique second-hand shop, and came to life when Emily, who was his owner, sort of left, and then this whole world erupted, and it was all very magical. And like was the Clangers, which doesn't make any sense whatsoever. These little things,
yeah, and the soup dragon and all that, yeah. And I'll tell you a funny story about the Clangers in a second. But I did a show with Gloria Hunniford, an afternoon TV show for a while. And it was one of these sort of magazine shows where they have all sorts of different guests. And they had, on this particular episode, Sir Cliff Richard. It's like, wow. And they had Oliver Postgate. And Oliver Postgate turned up with the original Bagpuss and a clanger. And so you've got all the sort of production crew and the cameramen and all that kind of stuff. And Sir Cliff Richard walks in. And everyone goes, "Oh, hi, Cliff." And then Oliver Postgate walks in at the same time. It was like, "Oh my God, it's Bagpuss!" And everyone was like, "It's a clanger!" And then you're talking about voices. Oliver Postgate just said, "But Emily loved him," in his voice, and everyone was like, "Ooh." Weak at the knees over Bagpuss.
Yeah, no, it's great. But I'll just tell you a funny Bagpuss, a funny clanger story. The clangers that went, they still had to have their scripts approved by the BBC at the time. And Oliver told a funny story about how in one episode, one of the clangers had something done to him, and he sort of went, which the BBC forced them to edit out because they thought that he was basically saying "sod off" or "sod you" or or whatever else. But this is a clanger going like that. But he was obviously not happy. But that's the BBC of the time.
Yes, I had heard about the potentially rude dialogue in there. In the clangers, well, because they've remade clangers, recently, haven't they? And
have they? Right, yes, they did. That's right. Yeah,
a bunch of stuff, and still doing similar stuff. So I think that was possibly still the case now. Martin, kind of, I'm guessing post Space 1999, things like Terrahawks and those shows didn't cross into your experience because you left those behind.
Yeah, I'd grown up by then.
But what about were you ever into comics and that kind of thing? TV21, the weekly comic at the time, or were you more into the toys and the physical stuff?
I was. My comics were the Beano and the Dandy. And not really any other type of magazine. So I didn't really get any comics that were more unusual.
Okay.
And Terrahawks was a bit. I find Terrahawks a bit frightening. The actual characters themselves sort of scared me a bit.
Yeah.
So, and that's a pathetic thing to say, isn't it? So I never really got into Terrahawks, and so I guess most of my focus is just on those what I consider to be halcyon days of production.
And many would agree with you. So we'll leave behind the childish stuff, which we'll definitely come back to, and we know you did. So why didn't you end up, being a hero pilot or making models and blowing them up? And what took you on this path towards Homes Under the Hammer instead?
Well, actually, a lot of it is about knowing that the opportunities to do that are out there and making the leap from something you've seen on television to actually doing it as a job is a big thing. It certainly was in my years growing up. And I was, my, career advice would have been, very, very limited. And I ended up I liked, and randomly, I was into electronics a bit, and I liked It was just at the time when electronics was really taking off, and I had an uncle who was an electronics teacher, and he had some cool stuff that flashed and responded to voices. And for some random reason, it led me down the world of electronics, and I ended up going to university to do electronics, and that's what I did. But halfway through my time at university, I discovered the Media Society, and ended up going on visits to TV stations and radio stations, and seeing that, you know, that normal people worked in TV and radio, and you didn't have to be some, you know, super amazing talent or whatever, you know, just as long as you committed to what you're doing, and, you know, and you know, just, there's always space for good people was what we were told by one particular manager of a BBC radio station, and I'll never forget that. He says there's always space for good people. I was like, oh my gosh. So, you know, had I realised earlier on, or been told that earlier on, then I'm sure that, you know, the idea of making models and driving, you know, being, I don't know about I would have ever, you know, well, I guess the nearest thing would have been to join the army, wouldn't it, or the RAF?
Yeah.
I don't think that was ever on the cards because I don't have a military background in the family. But, you know, there's that realization then that you could do things like that, and that basically led to me at the end of my university course sort of deciding not to go into electronics and starting my media career, and that's how I started in BBC Local Radio, Radio Manchester, and Radio Merseyside, and Radio Lancashire, and that led to Radio 4, and that led to doing travel shows, and that led to Wish You Were Here, and that led to Homes Under the Hammer, and, you know,
just like that, one smooth path.
Yeah, of course it was. No, lots of bumps along the way, lots of diversions, and lots of lucky breaks, lots of blind alleyways, as there are. But, you know, here I am.
That's how life goes. And so, what about during kind of lockdown stuff? So, you know, this is whenever people listen to this at this point, COVID's been going on for a year. So what is life like other than watching 32 episodes of Thunderbirds and playing with your dinkies? What are you doing right now?
Well, yeah, so it's been, you know, like for everybody, it's been really tough, you know. I mean, I'm self-employed, so, you know, everything dropped off a cliff. You know, I don't expect so much sympathy, but, you know, everyone thinks everyone working on TV makes millions and blah, blah, blah. Well, they don't. I tell you, a few people at the top do very well, and the rest of the people who are further down, it's just, you know, I'm not employed by the BBC. I'm freelance. So when they stopped filming Homes Under the Hammer because they couldn't film, all my job work stopped. We got holiday homes that we let out, and nobody could go to those. And I do property training courses, which were all people in a room doing seminars, which we've now moved online, and it's really good. But for 6 months, it was a disaster zone. Yeah. So, you know, financially and emotionally, for me, it has been a challenge, like it has been for everyone. And, you know, as you say, we don't know when people listen to this, but, you know, we're now in our, you know, the middle of the third sort of lockdown, and this is by far the worst. For me and for my kids. It's just, you know, it's all the fatigue set in, right? We've all just had enough, and it's grimy time of year. But, you know, I needed to carry on being creative, so I started my YouTube channel called Martin Roberts Property Titbits, and I've just been filming loads and loads of stuff about property advice and DIY advice, and well, we started filming it in the first lockdown, so there was amazing weather, if you remember. And I was out in the garden doing DIY stuff with the kids, you know, things that I'm not exactly re-roofing the house, but, you know, just projects that they could get involved in to inspire them, because I do believe that DIY practical skills are a bit of a lost art. My dad sort of showed me, and I grew up in that kind of environment. And I think, you know, with less parents doing it, I don't want kids to lose the ability to put up a shelf, or, you know, just to build something and not to have to get people in, you know. I think it's a real shame to lose that. So I spent quite a lot of time building up what I think is a really, really, really great YouTube channel. So if anyone wants to go and take a look and subscribe, I'd really appreciate it. That's Martin Roberts Property Titbits. You just search it up on YouTube, and there's lots of fun stuff on there from the world of property and DIY and things.
Yeah.
And you know, just trying to keep the kids motivated, which is, you know, they're youngsters right now, and they're not surprisingly very disillusioned. And you know, we've started filming Homes Under the Hammer again. You know, we managed to find a way to make it work. Very different. COVID secure. One property a day, COVID secure. Yeah. Me and a cameraman, nobody else. I mean, I've been doing the show long enough that, you know, it doesn't it doesn't affect what we do at all because I write my own stuff. I do it pretty much off the cuff anyway. The cameramen know me. We work together really well. So, we can make it work. And we've, as I said, with the property training courses that I run, we've managed to get those all online. And that's going really well. And I think people are more open to doing things online now.
Absolutely.
Zoom calls and learning online. It's sort of, the world has opened up to that. Podcasts exploded and all that kind of thing. And I think that's so we sort of adapted to that. And and I've been working really hard on charity projects. I've got a project. I've got my own foundation called Martin Roberts Foundation, and its charitable objective is to support educational and safeguarding initiatives for children and young people. So I'm very aware that during lockdown, especially, kids, really younger kids especially, have struggled a lot. And I wrote a book called Sadsville, where it's just a silly, whimsical world. It's a illustrated children's book for sort of 7 to 10 year olds, where everyone in Sadsville is sad all the time. It's part of a series called the Villes, and in the Villes, Tidesville, everyone's always tired. In Boardsville, everyone's always bored. In Hotsville, it's always hot. In Windyville, it's always windy. And there's always a silly, whimsical reason why. And there's a central character who comes along, and he sort of, because he's an outsider, he can work out things aren't quite right, and he inspires the inhabitants of Windyville to work out why it's always windy. In fact, in Windyville, it's because the man who's built the local wind farm is colourblind, and he's wired all the wind turbines the wrong way round, so they're actually blowing rather than sucking the air. Anyway, you should get the idea. So I did a book called Sadsville, where everyone's sad, and again, whimsical reason. The man who's making the crisps in the gourmet crisp factory is putting onions in the cheese and onion crisp, real onions. So everyone's crying all the time. So they seem sad. But what it does is it gets kids thinking a bit sort of outside the box and a bit laterally, and gets them thinking about their emotions. And the idea, I've done this in conjunction with the NSPCC and Childline, and it's to get children just to start talking about their emotions and thinking about their emotions, and realizing that they can, if they're sad, they need to reach out for support, but also they can also take control of that and recognize, we call it good sad and bad sad. So everyone is sad right now. Everyone is going to be cheesed off, but there's a big difference between that and the kind of sadness that you get from being abused or being neglected or being bullied, and getting them to recognize that difference. So we've been raising money, and we started out giving a free copy of every single free copy of Sadsville to every single 8 and 9 year old in various areas. So we raised the money in Bath. We gave them out to 7,000 kids in Bath. We did it in Somerset, 14,000 kids in Somerset. We did it in Hampshire, 24,000 kids in Hampshire got it one.
Brilliant.
And then the lockdown hit, and I realised that I needed to get this out to more nationally. So we raised the money and gave 2 free copies to every single primary school in the UK, along with a teacher's pack and a lesson plan. And we hope that ongoing will be used just as not in a heavyweight way, but just to get the kids to think about their emotions, and the teachers to use it as a conduit, just to hone in on any kids who really might be struggling, either now or in the future. And, if people want to know about that, they can go on sadsville.co.uk, and there's all the details of it there. And it's just something I'm really proud of, really.
It sounds brilliant. But you're doing your own national rescue thing. So you are Scott Tracy.
I like to think of it as that. Absolutely.
Perfect. Well, that we should take a conversation offline, Martin, about a charity I'm a trustee for called the Young People's Puppet Theatre, because I can see a great collaboration on that sort of thing. But we'll leave that for later on.
We had loads of celebrities read the book, and we had Basil Brush narrate the whole book for us.
Amazing.
And he was truly outstanding. So that's available free online.
Okay.
If people want to search out Sadsville, they'll find Basil Brush narrating it, and it's really, really great.
Go and search for that, Podsterons. Now, Martin, as our time, I can see, is rapidly ticking down, very Thunderbird style, with a giant, ridiculous rotary timer in front of us. I just wanted to touch on Mastermind. Obviously, a lot of our listeners would have seen your Mastermind recently, doing a sterling job with Thunderbirds as your specialist subject. Just that must have been quite a nice relief as well to get out of that get out of lockdown to do something a bit more normal in inverted commas, going on Celebrity Mastermind. That's pretty normal, isn't it? So how did that come about? What's the process of choosing a specialist subject? Why Thunderbirds? And then, what's the extent of the questioning? And do they give you some kind of guidance there? Because you could say, right, it's Thunderbirds, and then they go far and wide, and they go into behind the scenes and future further iterations and remakes and stuff.
Yeah, no, exactly.
How's it all work?
Well, I was lucky in some ways that I'd done it before. So I met Celebrity Mastermind about 10 years ago, and they just, they say, what is your specialist subject? And it's quite interesting. It's a question to ask yourself, what would your specialist subject be? It's an interesting one because we all know a little about a lot, but do we know a lot about a little? Yeah. And so it's an interesting question for your podcast, listeners to just ask themselves, what would your specialist subject be? So for the first one, the other thing I'm really quite interested in, again, from my childhood, it's all regression to childhood, isn't it? Was the cartoons of Hanna-Barbera. So Scooby-Doo and Stop the Pigeon and Wacky Races and the Hair Bear Bunch and Flintstones. They're all Hanna-Barbera. So I chose Hanna-Barbera. But what I didn't realise was that Hanna-Barbera started in the 1950s and finished in the late 1980s. My period was mid-60s to mid-70s. That's when all my cartoons from childhood were created. So when I got in the chair, I started getting asked these questions about cartoons I'd never heard of from the 1950s. And likewise, cartoons from the 1980s. And I'm going, what? And I realised the error of my ways. The key to choosing your specialist subject is to refine it down to within an inch of its life. Okay. So if your specialism is recipes, it's actually cake recipes from the 1930s. Yeah. And then, that's because otherwise it's too broad. So when it came to being asked to do it again, and I just got asked, if I'd like to appear again, and I was like, yes. So you have to pick a subject that no one's ever done before. So that's sort of, all the obvious subjects have gone, perhaps. And so I thought, well, I'll do your dad. I'll do Gerry Anderson. Yeah. And then learning from my experience, I thought, well, no, because that means it could be Terrahawks and it could be Fireball XL5. So let me hone in on one thing. And thank God, because there is enough to know about Thunderbirds.
Oh, yes.
So I said, okay, I'm going to do Thunderbirds. And I think surprisingly, but, whatever, nobody else had picked Thunderbirds as a specialist subject ever. So they agree with you then, the research information. So we decided it would be the classic Thunderbirds. Yeah. So we agreed a box set of 32 episodes, the 32 episodes, not including the film, of Thunderbirds. And alongside that, a reference book called The Vault. Yeah. So they picked The Vault as the reference book and the 32 episodes. Now, if you look at The Vault does contain all that behind the scenes stuff. Yeah. So it ended up being quite a broad subject. So I watched all the 32 episodes and I used that as the main basis of my research. And I obviously read, The Vault, but could not commit to memory, all the stuff that was in The Vault.
That's fair enough.
But a jolly interesting, if you haven't read it, a jolly interesting book it is. Yeah. If you're into Thunderbirds.
Lovely green Thunderbird 2 cover.
Yes. I don't know if it's I
think we've still got it for sale on the Gerry Anderson store. But it's a great book.
I don't know if you've if this is considered to be the de facto reference for Thunderbirds.
It's certainly one of the top ones, I would think, and definitely on a specifically Thunderbirds basis. I think currently, it's up there. Yeah. So,
if you are a Thunderbirds fan, I certainly enjoyed reading that. So, and it's good to know it's on the website to buy. So that's fab. So they were the two basics, and then it is daunting. You go in there, and even though you now know, you refresh your knowledge on things. If you think about watching 32 episodes, and I was getting into side characters and side plots, and I was really annoyed. I'd remember I'd managed to commit to memory quite a lot of stuff, but of course you never know what they're going to ask.
No,
you
could be anything.
But and there's also, it's not just about being asked the questions; it's being
ask the questions in those circumstances.
Yes, with bright lights on you, all the pressure.
Thumping music, John Humphreys, 3 million viewers. All that kind of piles on the pressure.
Yeah.
And so, people, ridicule people who get, general knowledge questions wrong, even the most basic ones. And I say, you know what, until you've lived in those shoes.
Yeah, tough.
Because all those people could answer those questions in different circumstances.
Yeah.
But you're not. You're in that. But, at the end of the day, you need to be, that's what it's about,
got to step up and do it.
You got to step up and do it.
And you did step up and do it. So for those outside the UK in particular, those who haven't seen it, tell us how you did.
So I won.
That's it. But it was very good work.
I got all my questions bar one of the Thunderbirds questions right, and I was on the tip of my tongue. And the question I got wrong was about the music. There was a musical song that had a message in it that was actually setting off, I believe, bombs on planes and things. And it was what was the name of the song? And I knew it was. It began with a D, and it was either disastrous or dangerous or something. And in the heat of the moment, I couldn't get it. But I was proud of what I did. So I won the general knowledge round, and I won the specialist round, and I won the general knowledge round, and I ended up, winning my mastermind Celebrity Mastermind trophy.
Good man. So is that somewhere in the man cave? That
it's absolutely somewhere in the man cave. There it is.
Ah, lovely. Excellent work. And you know what? You're doing it for the Anderson clan with that, Martin, because recently the only two people to do Anderson stuff as their specialist subject, you and Samira Ahmed, who did Space 1999, you both won.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Did he do Space 1999 in this episode, in this series?
No, she did it last year. It would have been out, I guess September time. And she actually managed to get a replica Moonbase Alpha uniform, which she wore on on there. Slightly disappointing we didn't see you in your international rescue sash and the hat, but maybe next time.
Well, I did say, actually, I'll tell you what, there was a bit at the end that I did a little they did as you've won, and there's a credits are rolling. They do a little interview with the winner, and they filmed quite a lot. And one of the things I said within that, but they ended up editing it out, was I just I hope that all the Gerry Anderson fans think I did fab. And I said that for you guys. So
thanks, Martin.
But unfortunately, they edited it out and they put in a little sweet thing about the fact that I used to watch Mastermind, with my mum and dad at home. So I'm sure that mum's not around anymore on this planet anyway. So I hope she'd be cheering, and I'm sure she would, along with Dad, who isn't around. So absolutely. you got a shout out. I was very proud to. And I did have so many people saying, "Oh, brilliant choice of because of course there's so much love. Yeah, so much love for it.
Huge amounts of love, and that will continue. And thanks to you for picking it for Mastermind, because it keeps it at the front of people's minds. It's amazing just how keeping it alive like that has such a great effect. I see our time has ticked down to pretty much zero, Martin. So if our listeners want to follow you on social media or find you there and congratulate you on your Mastermind appearance and just connect with you, where can they find you?
Yeah, so my website is martinroberts.com. If you want to just track me down on that. Twitter is @TV Martin Roberts. Instagram and Facebook, Martin Roberts TV. It just can be slightly confusing. What was the way? Some swine had slabbed it. And then the YouTube channel is Martin Roberts Property Tidbits. And finally, the charity is sadsville.co.uk.
Amazing.
So any of those things, lovely to touch base. And, I think, we share a lot in common. And I think fans of your dad's work, I think, are generally good people.
Oh yeah, generally speaking, they're pretty awesome, and
you can't imagine many thugs being being into it. I think it's a bit like people who have golden retrievers and labradoodles, which I in fact do. They generally aren't bad people. You're going to pick a different kind of dog, and you're going to pick a different kind of
a memory from your childhood, other than Thunderbirds, if you're a baddie. So I think it puts us in a category of good people, Jamie.
There you go. You've heard it here, Podsterons. If you're listening to that, you're a good person, according to Martin Roberts. So there you go. Martin, thanks so much for your time. You've been utterly FAB, obviously.
All the best.
Thank you, Martin. Really lovely chat.
Yes,
I really did
nice.
enjoy our chat. It was full of energy, nostalgia, fun, and happy memories, and some interesting bits and pieces from Martin too, anecdotes, etc.
It's nice, isn't it? Because I remember many people saying when Martin was on, Celebrity Mastermind and all that. Oh, you've got to get him on the podcast. He's a Thunderbirds fan. I saw him on Celebrity Mastermind. You've got to get him on.
Well, here he is.
We got him on. Yeah, did it?
Yeah, all right. Asking it shall be given unto you and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
If you want to find Martin online, martinroberts.com. Find him on Twitter, TV Martin Roberts. Facebook, he's Martin Roberts TV, where it's same as on Instagram, and Martin Roberts 1 on YouTube. It's very difficult to get the same handle across all social media, isn't it?
Yes, that's annoying, isn't it?
Very tricky. And I guess Martin Roberts is a relatively common name, so...
Yeah.
Anyway...
You should try being Richard James, Christ.
Yeah, of course, and all the James Richards as well, who are trying to get the similar ones.
About.
Yeah, it's tough.
Yes.
Now, Richard, did you enjoy our Celebrity Mastermind?
Yes.
Martin Roberts, because
yes.
Just say yes.
Of course I did. Sorry, yes, of course I did. Yes.
Good.
Why?
Because we've got
He's
another.
Not here, is he?
Because we've got another Celebrity Mastermind next week.
Have we? I mean, that's Samira Ahmed. That's Martin Roberts. Who else could it be?
And then it's Samira Ahmed again.
I see.
She's back. We've gone from Space 1999 on her last visit, which was, back around Breakaway Day last year, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Last year? Year before? It was the year before. Because
it was.
Gosh. Anyway, she's been watching UFO, and we had a lovely chat about all things UFO. And as usual with Samira, because she's so frighteningly smart, she eked out all sorts of new viewpoints and interesting things, and made me realise and learn new things about Dad along the way. So it's a really enjoyable chat. You're going to love it. I can't wait to hear it again. So Samira will be back next week.
Great. Meanwhile, over on Twitter, people have been hashtagging us Gerry Anderson Podcast. They've been tagging me, Richard and James. Yeah. Him, I'm Jamie Anderson.
Why have they done that?
Of course, him over there, Chris Dullock. For example, Lee tweeted, episode 156 of the Gerry Anderson Podcast mentioned the mini-album Interaction with Troy Tempest. The listener could join in by reading from a script that came with it. Look it up for more information.
Yes.
Okay. Thanks, Lee. So that was, someone posted in, didn't they? Or was it on Facebook or something, saying that you flipped over the single or the album, and you got to fill in the gaps and perform alongside other cast members, I'm guessing. So a script was provided, and off you went. That's a nice idea, isn't it?
Well, I've now got a recording of it, so maybe... For Christmas, we could do a performance. I don't know. We'll see.
That would be fun. Aaron Rook tweeted, "Love Thunderbirds, the Terror from the Stars. You mentioned that you were unable to produce new adventures for Thunderbirds and had to go off of existing content. Maybe you could use old comic strips to create audio adventures. Keep up the good work."
Maybe something that we have investigated. Stand by for further information.
All right. Brian B. Bunny tweeted, happy belated 3rd anniversary to the Gerry Anderson Podcast. And also Gary Hodgkinson says happy 3rd podversary to the Gerry Anderson Podcast. That's from a couple of weeks ago now. Of course, over on YouTube, John Clay says, thanks for podcast 156. Great fab fact on the busy year of 1969 and Doppelganger. I'd recommend the Blu-ray. And footage, of course, was integrated into The Man Who Came Back from UFO in 1970. And John Reed's atmospheric cinematography and grand score is wonderful. Good revisit to Thunderbirds with the Randomiser. And for Captain Scarlet Day, coming up on July the 10th, of course, he says you could discuss the teamwork of the crew who made a lasting success of the 1967, series. Yeah, could do that.
Yeah.
Could do that.
There's so many things that could be done.
Yes. Now, do you remember we were talking about the flopping of Doppelganger?
Floppelganger, as it's now known.
That's right, in various broadcasts by mistake. John posted on our YouTube channel, the colour problem is slightly more common. We then talked about, of course, the green alien, I think, in Star Trek.
Yes, correct.
Had to be reshot continually because one of the colourists didn't understand that she was supposed to be green.
Yeah.
John says, one British lab tried to colour correct rushes of a film shot in Ireland because they didn't realise that Irish phone boxes, similar to British ones otherwise, were green rather than red. It used to be a common practice when shooting on film to briefly film a colour chart under white light before an unusually coloured shot so that technicians would know it was deliberate. Also, things like that should have been noted in the negative report sheets paperwork which went to the lab, but that still wasn't foolproof. Of course, once a print is far removed from the production company, anything can happen. The Russian film Stalker was once shown entirely in black and white on Channel 4 in their early years because a technician hadn't realised that it went into colour after the first few shots. Oh...
Well, that's a little bit... Well, it's nothing like it at all, but I'm going to tell you anyway. When I started watching WandaVision on Disney, Disney Plus, for some reason Disney Plus always thinks I live in Germany.
Right,
so WandaVision started playing in German, and I was just sat there thinking, this is a really weird intro. I knew it was going to be a bit quirky, but I wonder when it goes into English. And it was only about 6 minutes in that I thought, I better just check the language settings, and yes... There we go. I was watching it in German by mistake.
Oh, interesting. Which reminds me of the Halloween edition of a series here in the UK and maybe elsewhere called Inside Number 9. And the idea was that it was sort of as if it were a live broadcast and it fell off air as part of the story. But of course, lots of people watching thought it had actually fallen off air. And apparently they lost 1 million viewers who immediately switched over to another channel. But apparently Steve Pemberton and Rhys Shearsmith were talking about it, saying, no, we told the BBC that this would happen. You know, people would actually believe it and we will lose viewers. But the BBC was still happy to broadcast it, which I think is quite sweet.
Amazing.
And finally, Ben Hatton says, I remember Journey to the Far Side of the Sun being on ITV, I think around 2009. I remember it was on at midnight and I stayed up to make sure my video player kicked in to record it. I can't remember if I noticed anything wrong with the flipped part of the film. I threw the tape out years ago when I got the DVD, so that's fair enough.
Fair enough, yeah.
Yeah, there you go. All for now, but do comment on our YouTube channel, do comment on Twitter, Facebook, and send us emails to podcast@gerryanderson.co.uk, and I'll read them all out next week.
Oh, good. I can't wait for those. Please do send them in. We love hearing from you. While we wait for that, and to maybe get your creative juices flowing, would you like a bit of randomizer goodness?
Yes, please.
Well, Chris has recovered from his own little 3rd anniversary party that he had.
A bit of a do, by all accounts.
Yeah, I know. It was a bit weird we weren't invited. But
didn't get my invite, no.
No, maybe they were lost in the post, or maybe Marina was supposed to let us know or something. Anyway, I hope you had a good time, Chris. So he's looking a little bit dishevelled today, but he is here with the randomizer. So, Chris, I guess it's over to you.
Yes, Marina, I agree. It's very pretty, but, to tell you the truth, I'm not certain we should have come down here. Perhaps it was that squadron of hawks that nearly blew us to bits, but I just feel that...
Speak, Earthman. State your case.
Oh, hello. What? Oh, right, yes. We've got a button we'd like you to press, actually, if you would.
You have no place in space at all. You have no future.
No future? Oh, well, that's a bummer, although not really much of a surprise.
You carry with you the seeds of your own destruction.
Well, yes, it's called the Randomiser, but it's hardly
a contaminating organism. A plague of fear.
Fear? Oh, no, Torchy was last week. No, this week I'm feeling much more confident.
He has conquered his fear.
Well, no, it's never 100% conquered where Torchy is concerned, but this week I'm pretty confident that not only will it not be Torchy, but it will also be an episode that proves humanity is not all about violence and hatred, but has a deeply moral core.
You can share our power, giving substance to your wish.
Oh, really?
You are free to walk where your mind has the will to take you.
Oh, well, does that include pressing the button on the randomizer?
If your mind can find a way.
Okay, let's see. Oh, no. Oh, I did it! Oh, hooray for me! And the randomizer.
Unlike your human brain, this will never die. It has been developed over generations and grows with each life that is lived in it.
Well, that's both comforting and somewhat terrifying. Right, let's see what we have today. Well, the series is Four Feather Falls, and the episode is Gunfight on Main Street. Sorry.
Mankind is full of fear.
Yes, look, Look, just because the episode title promises violence, does that mean you're going to destroy me now? You know, one of those judging an individual guilty for the crimes of their whole species thing?
No.
Oh, well, thank goodness for that.
The death struggle of inferior species is very often the finest hour of their existence.
Indeed. And as this is currently the only episode of Four Feather Falls that you can watch in HD, I am hoping it'll be a good one.
Come fearlessly into our brain and see.
Oh, well, after you.
The 4 feathers on this hat are magic. They enable Tex Tucker's dog and horse to speak, and his guns to fire without him even touching them. And now, another exciting adventure from 4 Feather Falls.
So, welcome back to Four Feather Falls on the Randomiser, and a notable episode of the show, not specifically for its place within the story of the Anderson legacy or even this particular series, but only for the fact that this episode is, at the present time, the only episode of Four Feather Falls that you can see in glorious HD. This is a bonus feature on the Day in the Life of a Space General Blu-ray, and also the This is Super Mario Nation disc from the big old Super Mario Nation box set a few years ago. And I've got to say, it does look very nice in HD. I mean, the rest of the show, we're stuck with these copies that look fairly grotty, fairly muffled sound. I hope you can hear on this episode.
If it's the sheriff you're after, you're wasting your time. He's out.
Thanks, partner. Where'll I find him?
Can't rightly say. Yeah, you got some business with him?
Could have, yeah.
But the sound is instantly so much clearer, so much bigger and bassier. It's wonderful to watch this episode. But then also rather sad to watch the other 38 and realise they could all look as good as this. But we may have to wait for that for a while.
Morgan?
No. Where are your partners? Ike Tobin and Billy Pinto.
Anyway, this chap Morgan's arrived in town.
You know that.
Well, if you do...
He clearly has some history with Big Ben, because he's instantly pulled a gun on him.
Tell him I'll hunt them down wherever they are. Hear that?
Yeah, I hear. But they're gonna kill you, Morgan. And when it happens, I hope I'm there to see it.
Oh, I love how dark and threatening this show can be sometimes. That's it, Ben's riding out of town. The newcomer in town is still holding the gun on him. But going back to this episode being in HD, and I know it's a strange thing to say. I hope you can hear the high definition, but you really can just listening to the soundtrack. And of course, I think by the time this episode of the Randomiser goes out, you guys may have had some news about Supercar on Blu-ray.
Rick?
As at the time of recording this, I finished the trailer for it yesterday, which you may have seen.
It's the funny little Rick.
I may have to censor this whole section of the podcast if that announcement has been delayed, but Supercar does look very nice in HD, and
it's the fun.
You know, the wheels have been in motion. I know we've been saying for a while, one day. Now Supercar is coming in HD in its entirety, and that has certainly boosted the chances that Four Feather Falls might one day get the same treatment, and I do hope so, because it looks and sounds so nice in HD.
It's the funny little...
If you haven't seen this episode, if you haven't seen the show, I thoroughly recommend you getting hold of one of the discs that it appears on.
Say, I know that voice. That's Tex Tucker.
Sure is. Do you mean that you don't know Texas Sheriff here?
And that he sings constantly?
Well, I'll be doggone. Tex Tucker.
Say, Tex, there was a fella asking after you, the name of...
Tex? Hey, Tex!
And this show is far more sophisticated in its writing and in its characterizations sometimes than it really needs to be. I know a lot of people compare it to like the Woody's Roundup bit in Toy Story 2. I doubt that this was any influence on that, despite the fact that they are obviously very similar. But, you know, Woody's Roundup is pitched as a very kiddie show, and this isn't so much.
He said to tell you he's gonna get you.
I mean, we've gone from Torchy of, magical toys and all sorts of, sickly goings on to, I'm gonna kill you.
Talk about me. Now you tell me about.
Well, I mean, some might say that threats of death were an underlying element of Torchy anyway, but we're not here to talk about Torchy.
Billy Pinto.
We're here to talk about this chap.
Those two. What do you want with them?
They robbed the stage at Kells Creek and shut up the driver. The driver was my kid brother.
Your brother? Tobin Pinto. Gee, I'm sorry about that, Cass.
You could do this show without that edge to it.
And I don't need no help.
But I really respect that they go to some dark places with this sometimes for a kid's show.
And I'm gonna get him.
Hold it, Cass. You can't take the law into your own hands.
That's my job.
Match for two of them. It'd be suicide.
I'm telling you, Tex, stay out of this. It ain't your business.
Okay, but don't forget, I'm the sheriff of this town, and it is my business.
I just wish I had a song to cover a murderous vendetta. I don't have one.
Fool! He'll get himself killed for sure. What are you gonna do, boss?
Don't rightly know. But I got a hunch there's something more I ought to find out about this business. Come on, Dusty.
Well, where are we going, boss?
I'm gonna send a telegram.
Ooh.
Ben didn't have a chance. Before he could slap leather, he was looking down a barrel of Morgan's gun.
That's all very fine. But I saw Tobin once in a gunfight in Abilene. Yes, I've never seen anybody faster. Oh, now, come along.
And the HD on this episode, and I think I may just focus on this episode for the HDness of it, it does make these sets look so much more beautiful. And the costumes, there's some lovely detail on these costumes.
Evening. Whiskey.
And again, drinking in a kid's show.
As I was saying, it was a real fine horse that they sold me, but look.
And small talk.
Here comes trouble.
Morgan.
Oh.
Relax, Morgan.
Oh, that's interesting.
Toting a gun?
Live action hand pulling a gun on a puppet.
From Ike Tobin?
That's very early for that kind of thing.
Yes.
Cut the wisecracks and say your piece.
I told him you said you was...
Again, whenever you look at something and think, oh, that's really impressive for this show, chances are it probably happened like 2 shows earlier anyway.
Well, I don't know. What about that?
Rhubarb from our...
They also said...
watchers in the bar.
Since you'll get on your horse and put as many miles as you can between you and them.
You've said enough. Now beat it before I plug you.
Oh, no. I promised myself I'd be around when they kill you. And I wouldn't miss this for anything. Hey, Jim.
Jim's hiding behind the bar. And Grandpa Twink's leaving.
Twink, you seem in a terrible hurry.
I ain't got no time to stop, ma'am. I gotta get to the sheriff.
Oh, the sheriff? Oh dear. Does that mean trouble?
Yeah, sure does. Means a gunfight. You better get on home.
Oh, Mr. Twink, just a minute.
What is it now, ma'am?
Tex ain't in his office.
Doggone it, woman, why didn't you say so?
I love the relationship between these two.
You're going.
I gotta find Tex.
In some episodes, I think Denise is just sort of shoehorned in as one of her characters where they can't really find naturally a way to fit her into the story.
Call him again.
Well, Tex is over at Dan Morse's telegraph office.
Come on, Dan. Call him again. I know how you feel, Tex, but it's again the regulations. You gotta have patience.
And again, you don't instantly recognise that that's Parsons doing the voices for both of these characters when they're talking to each other. He's also doing the voice of one of these baddies as well.
Yes, Grandpa?
You seen Tex anywhere?
Oh, I love Grandpa's little slippers.
You gotta help me find him. Come on.
If only we had like a bell or something we could ring when there was trouble.
Oh, it's getting close to midday. That's when we're going to have our gunfight on Main Street. Sitting in the saloon, watching the clock. This this is nice music. Everyone knows what's coming.
Count the minutes, Morgan. 'Cause you ain't got many left.
I'll deal with you when I finish with your partners.
Here they come. Again on some very derpy horses. Any horse that isn't Rocky is just...
Tex!
Well, is a very sorry sight.
Ain't nothing yet.
Dusty! Tex!
Why, Jake, what's the matter?
Grandpa says there's gonna be a gunfight, and he says you gotta do something.
They finally pulled into town. Ben's two accomplices. Is it Ike, Tobin, and someone else?
Morgan, it's Tobin.
Tobin.
I heard tell you want me.
Oh, that's it. Going out to face him.
Tex, hold it.
Something coming in the telegraph office. Oh, and there was a shot of the two baddies there. There was a horse positioned right in the middle of the shot, but quite way back.
It is, Tex.
Staring straight at the camera, he looked very sinister.
Cass Morgan, wanted for murder, stagecoach driver, Kells Creek.
So, this guy's a bad un too.
But before I do, I want to tell you something.
I don't want to hear any of your lies, Tobin.
You better listen while you've still got a chance. We didn't rob the stage. We didn't kill your brother.
Don't give me that. I don't believe it.
Okay. Have it your way.
Again, these are a pair of
Say your prayers first.
slightly goofy-looking puppets, but not too bad for this show.
Come shooting.
Hold it. There ain't gonna be no gunslinging here.
I told you to stay out of this, Tex Tucker.
But the episode's called Gunfight on Main Street.
Morgan's asked for it, and he's gonna.
How can we have a gunfight with no guns?
Drop them guns. It wasn't them two that did it.
I've heard enough talk. From now on, I'm talking with lead.
Now don't nobody move.
Yeah, you wouldn't get that in Woody's roundup.
This is my town.
It's not one of the phrases you hear when he pulls the string on his back.
Two, get going. There's just one thing I gotta do first.
Oh.
Like I said, get going.
I love that sound of the dog barking in the background. And another live action shot of a human hand pulling a gun there.
You saved my life.
On real puppets.
Oh.
What do you mean?
You know what I mean, Morgan. You robbed that stage, and you shot the driver. Too bad you didn't know it was your own brother. It was a good alibi trying to throw the blame on those guys, and it almost worked. So start walking towards the jail.
Yay, well, again, that's a dark ending for a fairly grim episode. I can quite understand why this episode was chosen to represent the show in HD, because it's, it shows the strength of the series. This is not just a harmless little kiddie show, There's death, and, we don't have to see it. We don't even often have to hear about it, but it's enough that we know that in this world, the stakes are real, are genuine, so I really enjoy this one. I hope I would have enjoyed it as much were it not in HD, but it is in HD and it looks gorgeous, as will many other Anderson shows to come.
Thanks, Chris.
Yeah, great.
I mean,
very nice.
One of the beauties of the randomizer.
It's random.
I was going to say that Chris Dale is an excellent host, but
yes, sure, yeah.
It is random, and that always keeps us on our toes and makes us surprised and keeps Chris on his toes, as you just heard there. So Chris will be back next week,
on his
hopefully
toes.
Not dishevelled, but certainly on his toes.
Yes.
For the randomizer for Pod 159, and I guess we'll be back then too. Now I put in a polite request for some reviews last week, and
yes, and
I'm sorry to say that the response has not been that great. So
I see. Right.
Podsteron, if you're listening now and you haven't left a review, I mean, I don't mean to be rude, but what are you doing? I mean,
that's pretty rude.
It's literally going to take you a minute to do it at the end of this. Just, when we've said goodbye, go and do it. And then we might read it out next week and we'll be forever in your debt. I mean, only
will.
sort of...
we're not going to actually give you anything.
No, but we'll feel beholden to be nice to you in the future. So
yes.
Yeah, please do. We'd really appreciate it. Anyway, look, we're going now to leave you time to leave us a review and a rating.
Yep. Start thinking about it now, what you're going to write.
Yes, something along the lines of, this is the best place on the internet. It makes me super happy. Richard and Jamie and Chris are brilliant hosts, and it's a wealth of nostalgia, brilliant tidbits, and excellent humour. 5 stars.
That's it. That's all. That'll do.
Yeah.
We've written it for you.
Maybe someone will leave that exact review, and that will make me most amused. Anyway, look, time for you to write your review. We're going away. We'll be back for Pod 159 next week. Thank you for tuning in, and farewell.
Bye.
Go and write that review now.
Stage 1 complete.
Let's go.
Spectrum is green.
So, do you think that will work? I mean, it's getting pretty desperate now, me asking. You don't think it'll work?
You're scraping the bottom. I think all that's left now is threats.
Physical, emotional.
Maybe to do with people's family members.
Well, we have got Phil Steer's email address, so I think we should start with him.
This has taken a dark turn, hasn't it?
I wasn't expecting this, but I guess it shows the level of desperation that we've reached.
Yeah.
So,
those reviews.
Richard, I can disguise my voice if I do a heavy breathing thing, can't I?
Oh, not again, Jamie. You know the trouble I got you into last time.
I can do it. The sort of.
You will leave us a review or face the consequences.
Yes, very, very good. Any excuse.
I just love getting that out.
I know you do.
Anyway,
I know.
Maybe that'll get us a good review.
Thing?
Oh,
why don't I get a?
What do you want?
Well, I want a gimmick of some sort. You've got that. You've got a party piece. What have I got?
I mean, you've got that Hawaiian shirt thing that you were wearing a while ago.
Oh, I've got that, I suppose. Doesn't really work on audio for a podcast, though, does it?
Okay. Podsteron, if you're still listening, what's the audio equivalent of a Hawaiian shirt? Please do email us hawaiianshirts@gerryanderson.co.uk. We'll look forward to your thoughts.
Yeah, definitely. Good luck.
Oh, goodbye.
Bye.
You have been listening to the Gerry Anderson Podcast. Wasn't it fun?
You have been listening to an Anderson Entertainment production.